Hey, folks, welcome in and good evening. Welcome to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Who's got next? I'm Dennis Fitty, and I'm joined by Zach Libby, Maize and Blue Review recruiting editor, who is on the line. And you see his video right there. It's always great to see him. Zach, what's going on? How are you?
Not much. Just got, watching Maryland, watching Michigan go 4-0 with big tests on Saturday. So, it's been a good week so far.
Before we jump right into it, I noticed that when I read your stories and I'm looking on your Twitter feed, you've got some field from pictures from what look like you're down on the field. Is that what's going on down at Michigan games? You're down before the game around with a field pass.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Josh for giving me that field pass. Yeah, I've never been in the big house. You know, I've been alive for 26 years. I've never been there till now. So it's been fun just to be in that atmosphere and to see the culture that, everyone that's been a Michigan fan talks about so highly of. So it's been nice.
Yeah, well, out of all those 110,000 people up there, it is rare to be able to get down on the field. So you really have some special access. So that's great. I like the pictures. You're doing a good job down there. And so you've been busy these last four games because Michigan has had all of these games. Let's talk about some of these players. And for the first one we want to go to is something that I saw Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Mason Blue Review, I don't know, 2 weeks or so ago. He had a post about Chris Peal, the three-star safety from Charlotte, North Carolina, and he was just saying how good things looked for Michigan, but some things have changed. It appears in his recruitment. Recruiting. I don't have to tell you, Zach is an onion, and you do take those layers. And with Peal, there's a lot of layers to the onion here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right after the OV, they took to Michigan for the UConn game. Nothing but great things to hear about it, from the staff, from our sources. I mean, anytime someone takes an OV, it's never going to be a bad visit, but, it's just nice to get Peal on campus for the first time alone after going up in July. So I bet it was great for him. Yeah, things have changed in terms of, I don't know, where Michigan is positioned right now, I guess. This past weekend, Peal went back to Georgia for an unofficial visit. If there was a top four for Peal, it would be Georgia, Michigan, South Carolina, and NC State. With Georgia, obviously, there's been rumblings that they're the supposed leader. Um, Regardless of the fact that right now, since Chris Peal is a cornerback, I know it says safety on Rivals, but he's a cornerback. Georgia has 6 commits for 2022 and 2023. Now, for a stacked group like that, maybe if you're a recruit, maybe you think, I'll go somewhere that there's a better chance to get on the field. But if there's a school, if there's any school in the FBS that can get away with that way of thinking where you can add additions and, work your way up the depth chart, it's Georgia. I mean, they got the pedigree, they got the national championship, the whole 9 yards. From who I've spoken to, Peal has said that the fact that Georgia has all these young cornerback coming up too, it doesn't really persuade us thinking that Georgia is still one of the favorites. I think his unofficial visit last weekend against Kent State kind of showed his still budding interest. He did cancel his South Carolina OV, but that's going to be later. South Carolina is very much still in this. NC State is still sort of, but it would be. I think that, like you said, the way of thinking with Peal preferring Michigan, maybe right after the OV compared to now, kind of changes things. So we'll see how that happens. But I'm not quick to put a future cast for Michigan right now, and I don't think anyone else at MBR as well.
Well, the one thing that's disappointing in that is that Peal goes to Providence Day there in North Carolina, and right now you might be hard pressed to find another high school in the country that has as much quality football talent at the top end as Providence Day. And Michigan, for people that don't know, they really want the quarterback that plays for Providence Day, a guy that you've seen and most people know as a household name right now in Jaden Davis. But it doesn't mean like if Michigan doesn't get Peal that it's bad news, for Davis or any of the other Providence Day kids. I mean, they're each individuals and everything else, but it would make you at the same time feel good if Michigan somehow was able to pull them, that there might be a pathway to Ann Arbor from Charlotte, right?
Yeah, I mean, the effect that it'll have on the teammates that are also heavily targeted, especially in 24 class. I mean, I'm not going to say no that it won't have an effect, but I'm also not going to say yes that it won't have an effect. Like you said, they have the idea, or they like the idea of being teammates at the next level. I mean, if you consider a brotherhood, like that's a good example at Providence Day. You know, they're best friends, they ride together, they train together. You know, they're childhood best friends, and they want to play together. Um, with, but they also understand too that they're mature enough to understand that individual interests, maybe some things, you know, position coaches or just academics or anything can dismay that opportunity, and they understand that. So, like I said, I mean, it can't hurt that if Peal joins Michigan, it won't have a greater effect. But I think the other kids are smart enough to know that, you know, if Peal goes one way, that's his choice, and it won't affect their choices.
All right, let's take it from Peel to. I remember the last time I was talking with you, you were out east and you were getting ready to go see Nick Harbor, the 5-star athlete from Archbishop Carroll. You posted a lot of videos, and Harbor this past weekend, he was in Ann Arbor for his official visit. So all eyes and the I don't know, full court press. I mean, how would you deem it? How did Michigan feel about it? How did Harbor feel about his visit in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, we'll know more from Harbor himself once he talks with Adam Freeman, the Rivals national recruiting analyst. But I mean, when they're on campus or when they're on the field, I mean, obviously I can't talk to him directly, so it was more of what I was observing while Harbor was at the stadium. One thing that really stood out was Denard Robinson, the assistant director of player personnel, and Albert Karchnia, the director of recruiting operations, were attached to the hip of Harbor. You know, it can't be said of how huge of a visit Harbor is. I mean, outside of Jane Davis, I mean, there's probably not more of a bigger headliner for this fall. Probably more knowing that he's a 2023. After the game, well, let's talk about before the game. You know, they got usually right when they get out of the tunnel, they take the sidelines like right around the north side of the stadium and then get to the Michigan sidelines. Instead, for Harbor, they as soon as he walked out of the tunnel, they went right to the midfield for warm-ups. So him and his family, both of his parents, were right next to Karchnia and Robinson, watching pregame warm-ups, you know, talking to Harbaugh a little bit, taking photos, obviously. So in terms of full treatment, like this is all hands on deck, as evident from just 30 minutes of what I saw before kickoff. And then after the game, Ron Bellamy, who's been recruiting or leading the way for Harbor because he's in charge of the DMV area for recruiting, him and Harbor embraced after the game, said a few words. You know, it was just a little, I guess, saying hi again. You know, they've been talking probably all weekend. And then after the game as well, Denard made sure to get Devin Funchess, who was on the sidelines as well. Funchess actually introduced himself to Harbor, so they were able to talk a little bit after the game. So it's just good to see Robinson get his former teammates involved, you know, just to make a concerted effort to just get Harbor, you know, acclimated with everyone important in the program. But yeah, I know you've talked about Harbor so many times on written or video or podcast alike. Like, this is a kid who's a top 5 NFL draft pick at the edge position. Huge upside offensively as a tight end or a wide receiver. Advantages for Michigan if he chooses them. High academic kid. His mom works in a hospital as a pharmacist. His dad works at NASA as an engineer. So this kid is really serious about academics, which Michigan can provide. Another thing is just football pedigree. I mean, the other contenders right now, we got Maryland, who just lost to Michigan. You got LSU, who, you know, who knows what's going to happen under Brian Kelly in these next couple of years. And then you have South Carolina, who just got embarrassed by Georgia while Nick Harbor was taking his official visit there. little bit that's falling behind for Michigan, I guess, NIL opportunities. But I mean, this is probably the most marketable non-quarterback in the 2023 class. So anywhere he goes, he's going to get NIL opportunities. I guess it's a matter of what he's going to get up front. And then track. This is a kid who wants to play in the Olympics and in the NFL. So having year-round track opportunities, with the weather climate and I guess higher pedigrees with respective track programs like LSU and South Carolina, I guess that appeals to him too. So I know fans would like to know what's going to go on with Michigan. Do they have a lead? Do they not have a lead right after the OV? But this is probably something we won't know until as late as the traditional signing periods. So this is probably something we're going to wait on for a while, and we won't know for a while either.
All right. Well, Michigan's in the mix. I guess it didn't hurt to have the former Michigan defensive back Charles Woodson out of the field this past Saturday either. I saw him running around talking with a lot of different folks. It wouldn't surprise me if he didn't make it a point to go over and maybe shake a recruit's hand or two. But good. That's kind of guy Charles Woodson is.
Exactly. Yeah. As many people as you can. I mean, there's just too many powerful people, former alumni that can make a difference, and Woodson can be one of them. So, having that big noon kickoff makes a difference, obviously.
Okay, we continue on. That is Zach Libby, the recruiting editor for the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian, and we've got a next player to look at and consider. This is a three-star defensive tackle from the Peach State in Cumming, Georgia. Nathan Efobi. Efobi is from South Forsyth High School. What can you tell me about Nathan?
Yeah, so originally this was supposed to be an official visit, but it turned into an unofficial. But no, this was a kid that got offered in July, considered Michigan his dream school. Was originally supposed to go to the annual barbecue at the Big House in July, but instead his first visit came in September. First time that we talked to him, this website, he wanted to come to Michigan in September, which ultimately ended up happening. This is a kid who was part of the offensive line rebuild for the board. If you follow recruiting, you know that Michigan missed out on a number of offensive line targets in June and July. So Sharon Moore and company have kind of gone back to restart and gone after kids who are either uncommitted or up-and-comers, and Efobi is one of them. This is a kid who's interesting because, for one, he has a family connection with David Ojabo and his mother. David's mother and Efobi's mother are childhood best friends. I've wrote about this before, but David's mother, even before Nathan got the offer, he was even targeted. She would go on about how much love she has for the program and how much, the fans, the coaches, the faculty, and everyone supported David during his stint in college, and how much Michigan was able to develop him into what ultimately ended up being a second-round draft pick. So, Efobi was, has talked to Ojabo, on occasion, and what to expect for when he visited. I think it'll increase now with the coaching staff, I guess, getting Ojabo essentially to help out with this recruiting effort. Efobi really respects Ojabo. He's seen the development that he was able to do from just a 1 year span, and feels like if he can do it, then I can do it. I'm talking to him tonight, so story's going to be up tomorrow about his recap. So if I feel comfortable with it after talking with him and hearing his words, I might be putting in a future cast.
Yeah, well, I'll tell everybody, wake up around 4:47. That's a lot of times when I notice Zach is posted a story. So, if you want the latest, go after it that way. All right, and he's a 23 recruit, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I know this guy is not. Bryce Underwood, he's a 4-star quarterback out of Belleville, and the first time I saw Mr. Underwood is that he just posted a video on, I don't know, some Instagram. He looked like he's 25 years old, and he was throwing a no-look pass into a future Samaj Morgan. I think they were just working out wherever, but he looked like a pro already, and then I hear that, that kid's in high school and he's like 15, 16 years old, which was eye popping. And, it's right down the street. It's in Michigan's backyard. Should Michigan, I don't know, did he have Michigan shoes on or a Michigan shirt, something, but it's right in the backyard. So Michigan, of course, is going to be interested in him. What can you tell us about Bryce Underwood and the chance that, or what he's saying about Michigan? And I would think, of course, Michigan will want him.
I mean, if you follow recruiting, you obviously know the name Bryce Underwood. If you don't know, he is, like we said, he is about 20 minutes away from Ann Arbor. He is the number 2 overall recruit in the 25 class by Rivals.com. Offers from Notre Dame, Miami, Tennessee, Pitt, Kentucky, Michigan, Michigan State. No, this is a kid, like you said, loves the off-platform throws. He's getting comparisons between Pat Mahomes and Cam Newton. This 6'3", 205 pounds, gunslinging of an arm, can tuck the ball in and run. Like, he can do it all. He's learned a lot while working with Dante Moore, so they've known each other for a while. He trains with Samaj Morgan, so they're getting close. Belleville and West Bloomfield, they know each other really well just because they're both one of the top teams in the state of Michigan. So, having those connections really helps. But yeah, Underwood was on campus for the Maryland game. He's been there multiple times to Michigan in the past, just because, like we said, he's like a 20-minute drive. He was treated as a high priority target in his class, and he was treated like that person, like that he's a must get. He's been a must get for a while now, but he's on track to win his second straight division state championship with Belleville. So the sky's the limit for this kid. It's only a matter of time before more national schools can catch up to him, but for Michigan to really set the foundation now is making a difference. This kid is very close with Steve Klinksdale, who's making a name for himself, for years in the Detroit area and its suburbs. Klink actually offered Underwood when Klink was in Kentucky, so they've known each other for years. With Matt Weiss, I mean, they have similar personalities in the sense where they're not really hoorah. It's more about the X's and O's and what's the on-field results. Little thing about Matt Weiss, too. I know he's gotten some criticism this offseason with quarterback recruiting, but if you notice, the kids that are really going, expressing interest in Matt Weiss, they really like his NFL experience and his background, and they understand that NFL coaches kind of have the same demeanor as Weiss. So they like that they can learn from someone who understands what it takes to get to the league. Underwood is going to be in Alabama this week, so he should probably get that offer pretty soon now, as well as the top SEC schools. I wouldn't be surprised if A&M and Georgia and LSU get into the mix as well. But yeah, no, I think it would be very important to keep him in state after missing out on Dante Moore and CJ Carr to an extent. I know he's the grandson, but we can go on about that, down that rabbit hole. But I think just from a publicity standpoint too, and obviously talent, it would be great to keep him at home and have him represent the state for the school that it's 20 minutes away.
Hey, well, I got a real easy solution for Matt Weiss or anybody else at Michigan that might think they're, getting criticized too much. I could tell them they land Jaden Davis, they land Bryce Underwood. That criticism is out the window, man. That's how to get rid of it. Get one of these guys, and that criticism goes away. Well, this is one that we will likely be talking about for the next days, weeks, months, and maybe years when it comes down to Bryce Underwood. So we'll be very familiar with the quarterback out of Belleville. Well, let's take it out west. People might not be familiar, although I am, because I remember the last time I talked with you, we talked about this 4-star defensive tackle out of Utah, Spencer Fano. So Michigan is in pretty good with Fano. What's the latest?
Yeah, so he's projected to be a tackle, like an offensive tackle at the next level. This is show more-led recruitment. They've been communicating consistently since the winter, even before when Fano got offered in late January. Fano actually visited for the first time in late April with his father. Was really impressed with the way Moore and Karchnia, gave him that priority feel. He left feeling like Michigan wants him and, wants him back for a visit soon. Michigan has kept that consistently over the summer, which ultimately led to an official visit. Fano will be at the Michigan State game. So that will be a good weekend for him to see the culture and the tradition that Michigan can offer him, and just the opportunities that lay ahead for him to leave the West Coast. It's just important that we bring him up again because he has his top 4 out, which was released yesterday. Michigan, BYU, Utah, and Oregon are all in the top 4. Utah had him officially visit in June. Oregon is going to get his official visit this weekend. Michigan, like we said, is going to be in late October. And then BYU is going to be sometime after that. Like I said, with Sherrone Moore, he has one of his best relationships and on the recruiting trail has been with Moore. He likes the fact that Moore, really develops these bonds with these recruits outside of football. Like they get to know his family, they get to know their interests, they just get to know the person as opposed to just a football player. In terms of when he goes on his official visits, I would like to think that maybe they use Andrew Gentry as a pitch, just to show that they are able to find success in Utah, and Gentry can able to give that connection or back home feel to Fano and explain why Michigan is the right fit for him. It's just hard. I know with West Coast kids, they like to stay out west. That's what they know. With Utah, Kyle Whittingham's a winner. He wants to play for Pac-12 championships, Rose Bowls, and college football playoff appearances, and I know Utah can give that to him potentially. Oregon, it's Fano's favorite school growing up. Like most West Coast kids in that generation, all they've seen is winning from Oregon. Dan Lemming, the head coach, he's a proven recruiter, is doing everything right with Fano. BYU, it's closest to home because he's from Sandy, Utah. It's about not Sandy, Utah, Timpview, like all in that Salt Lake City area. But BYU is closest to home. He has a family connection to the school because his older brother plays for them. He already has 2 teammates at Timpview High who are already committed to BYU. I don't want to put a future cast anywhere right now. It's just too early, but I think it's just great for Michigan to see the results of what happened in the spring and winter leading to an official visit and then ultimately in the top 4. So, despite it being a marquee game for Michigan State, it's also going to be a big recruiting weekend, and Fano will be one of the big highlights for that weekend for sure.
Yeah, those are a lot of markings and indicators that he might stay out west. But coming in for that Michigan State game and seeing a big blowout victory over the Spartans, we can say that right now. That might sway him to blaze his own trail and head east, young man, Mr. Fano, and forget all those schools and leave him behind. And you're right, there'll be a ton of recruits in. You never know who he's going to bond with on that particular day, but a big beatdown maybe can help sway him. All right, Spencer Fano, we'll keep an eye on him. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Shoelace earlier, Denard Robinson. That was his nickname when he played at Michigan. I don't know if they call him Shoelace anymore over in the football building. Sure, why not? He's got $1 million smile. He is the assistant director of player personnel. What is Denard when it comes down to recruiting? Like, he does have charisma. You meet Denard Robinson and you want to hug him. You want to put your arm. You want to hang around with Denard Robinson. So how's Michigan and how does it work with Denard Robinson? Is he able to talk to the kids? Does he get down there on the field with them? How does Michigan utilize Shoelace?
Yeah, we've told subscribers in the past, like, Denard's role is going to increase, especially in recruiting. You've hit all the strong points, like bright personality.
Yes.
Glowing attitude, like a legend in his own mind, from what he did in Michigan to being on the cover of NCAA 14. Like, from a recruit's perspective for these high schoolers, that's who they know Denard from. Like, they may be too young to see what he did on the field, but they know him as a video game cover athlete. So, Michigan was smart in just being able to just utilize Denard, especially this fall, like, to talk with these families, talk to these recruits, develop these friendships, just show a new face, just to be in that room with these guys. I'll give you an example, like in Hawaii, like when during the ring out, like when everyone was sitting in that little conference room where all the recruits go, like right before they go to the tunnel, like Denard brought out a box of dominoes and he was just teaching recruits how to play. And I talked to one recruit who was there, and he was like, "That was one of the best things I've ever experienced." Like all of his older brothers were jealous that he got to hang out with Denard Robinson. But like we said, last 4 games, we've really seen him being around these recruits, especially the official visitors, like Kay McDonald for Hawaii game, Chris Peal for the UConn game, and then now with Nick Harbor for the Maryland game. Like we said, relaxed vibe, celebrity influence means a lot, and Michigan knows that. With the official visitors attached to the hip, shows them around the field. It's kind of like that liaison during warm-ups and then at the end of the game. But in terms of how we see Denard later on, I don't know, the next year or two, I would really like to see him be helping out on the trail, like on the road. I think Michigan can really capitalize on using his influence in South Florida. I mean, he's from that area. He's a legend.
He's the GOAT.
Yeah, exactly. He's a legend in those counties like Palm Beach, Broward, Dade County, like the mecca of Florida recruiting in general, and maybe even the country. Just to have that influence and to possibly get a pipeline started, even the West Side with IMG Academy, like his presence alone can really make a difference, and you're seeing that right now. And if it results in official visitors committee to Michigan, like credit needs to be given to Denard. But we have
for him to go on the road. Sorry to interrupt you, Zach. What has to happen? Does he have to be a coach on the staff, or are there other part of Michigan's coaching staff that's not necessarily a coach on the field, administrative, that they can actually go on the road? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if you do either.
I'm not sure either, but at the very least, they can at least get in contact with Denard in the way, like at least communicate over the phone. I don't really know how this works, but at the very least, why not use it if that's possible? But I think just in the end, just to, conclude everything, I think Denard has been one of the best hires they've ever had in quite some time, just from a personnel standpoint, and it's showing off this fall. If you're ever at the game and you're watching warm-ups, just take a look at Denard and see what he's doing. I'm guaranteeing you, he's going to be with a big visitor, and he'll stay with them until the very end. So you're seeing results happening, and it will be even more once if these commits actually happen. So good on them for utilizing Denard's influence and celebrity status.
Well, that's the exact opposite of what I was doing, back when I was in the press box during warm-ups, because if you'd say, hey, go catch Raffithian's at, he's over the buffet line, get ready to fill up his plate so he can get a seat when the game starts, So a little bit different approach when it comes to how things go before a Michigan game. Zach, what do you have going on next? You're going to be heading anywhere this weekend? You're going to just be manning the phones? What's that going to be like for you?
This Friday, if anyone's in Michigan, in the metro area, go to Dexter High on Friday, because Ann Arbor Huron is going to be playing. So you got 2 Michigan commits battling out on each side of the field in Cole Cabana and Adams Samaha. So that'll be a good matchup to see.
Zach, do you know where I live?
Chelsea?
I live in Dexter, Michigan. So I feel like, if I got to go see Cole Cabana. Come on, man. I got to do it.
Yeah, so, I'll see you there then.
I'll try to get over there. That sounds like a good idea. All right. Do you have any final thoughts? That seems like a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, we'll know more. We got 2 weeks of road games. So mid-October with Penn State is the big one for recruit visitors. So looking forward to that, and we'll keep you updated this week and beyond with everything that's happening.
Yeah, and check out, if you're somebody that's listening or watching the Mason Blue Review for the first time, Zach is constantly keeping you up to date on the board, stories, and everything with the Mason Blue Review. And right now, you can get free access all the way until basketball starts. So you should take advantage of that. That's a no-brainer. Do that. Zach, it's always great talking with you. Looking forward to doing it next time. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. See you, bud. There he is, Zach Libby. That is